bringest zu mein Glück Frieden auf deine Flügel bläue und nimm mein Herz mit und bring es zu mein Glück. Es ist hallo der Frühling of free.
Beit Villna is a heart of a memory, of culture, of intergenerational dialogue, and of historical responsibility. It is therefore deeply meaningful that we host distinguished guests from Lithuania who have come to Israel for an official visit and also for a couple of hours to get to know our community, Beit Villna, and the people who live every day with this history. I'm honored to welcome Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, Mr. טוארימאס, ואליס. Hello, shalom. Not yet. The Ambassador of Lithuania to Israel, Mr. Sporska, and Ms. Cولט אביטל, Chair of the Center of the Organization the Holocaust to Survivors in Israel. I will first wish to invite our friend Audios to present our guest of honor from Lithuania. Please.
Dear Miki Kantor, Chairperson of the Association of Jews in Vilna, and the vicinity of Israel, Ambassador Koulet Avital, Chairperson of the Center Organizations of Holocaust Survivors in Lithuania, Mr. Taurimas Valis, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, ladies and gentlemen. Erev Tov lekulaim. Hello, everybody. Good evening. It's good to be back in Beit Villna, which is, I think, is a home away from home for all of us who come from Lithuania, Lithuanians or Litvaks. It was just very recently that we commemorated the International Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel, but also in Lithuania and worldwide. And I also should say that Israel is about to conclude presidency of the IRA, which is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, with Lithuania taking active part in its deliberations. And there was, I think, a third development which I think is worth mentioning, which is that in January of this year, 2026, the government of Lithuania adopted the long-awaited action plan to combat anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and incitement to discord in all its forms, and also to foster Jewish life. I think, in a way, it is a milestone achievement in working out a strategy to confront anti-Semitism, and also an action plan with concrete measures to pursue the goal of eradicating anti-Semitism and xenophobia and hate in all its forms in Lithuania. It is an ambitious task, and certainly efforts need to be put in place in order to put this in action, but also to see that it actually succeeds. But you have to start somewhere. I think we start now. So I thought we should share the news with our Israeli friends without wasting much time. And today we have an excellent opportunity to do exactly that. And the opportunity is that actually we have in town the visitor, the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, Mr. Taurimas Valis, who is on a visit to Israel to pursue the economic agenda. And we have had actually a very full day of events targeting Israeli startup sector. You are a startup nation. We want to be second best. So we really try to look into the ways how to do that, how really to take on the best practice that Israel has to offer. And there's a lot of it for us to take on board, to learn from Israel, and see to it that actually we also succeed in doing something very similar in Lithuania. So we'll continue tomorrow with meetings. We also had a meeting with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs upon arrival. I think Vice Minister might also want to say a few words about that. So I'm happy to say that our bilateral relationship is up and it's flying actually. It's very good. It's positive, and we are having really a very good trusted dialogue among Lithuania and Israel. But this dialogue also has to be a genuine one. It has to be also an honest one. And we cannot escape, of course, the issue of Holocaust remembrance. Also remembering what happened decades ago. And how do we preserve this memory? How do we actually educate our new generation so that the memory is not lost, but it is with us and it is handed on to a new generation. So it is my great pleasure and honor, of course, to introduce Vice Minister Taurimas Valis, who joined the Foreign Ministry quite recently, just a few months ago. But he's a seasoned politician and also a very, very seasoned businessman. If I may just also mention a few points in his CV, in his career. He did his bachelor degree in international relations at Vilnius University, master's degree in law and governance, then a second master's degree in business management, and he also is pursuing doctoral studies in social sciences and economics. He's associate professor at business school in Vilnius University. He worked for Innovation Agency, Invest Lithuania Agency. He was advisor to the Prime Minister of Lithuania. He was also very active in business as in a financial sphere. He was the co-founder of the Family Credit Union, CEO of the Lotus Group, chairman of the board of at Baltic Development Fund, executive director of Lithuanian Association of Private Healthcare Institutions, senior consultant at Ernst & Young, the Baltic division, vice president of the Vilnius Chamber of Commerce, also a member of the Vilnius City Council, and he's also teaching, and I think has developed an extensive collaboration and network with universities and financial institutions internationally. I could go on and on, but of course, I would rather give the floor to the Vice Minister for his intervention. So thank you very much, and look forward to this presentation. Thank you.
Just want to introduce Cولט Avital. She has devoted her life to preserving the memory of the Holocaust, advocating for the rights of the survivors, and fostering meaningful dialogue between generations. Her presence here tonight is invaluable, as she brings not only historical insight, but also a deep understanding of the challenges and the hopes of our community. And Cولט Avital, she will join the Deputy Minister Valis for an open conversation, sharing the perspective and guiding the discussion with the wisdom and experience. The visit presents a unique opportunity for open dialogue. I suggested it to the ambassador, who graciously agreed to hold meeting here in Beit Vilna. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, since we are a small audience tonight, let me start with a story. The story is about a boat in the Mediterranean, which makes a cruise around the Mediterranean. And the boat is full of young people having a good time, partying, dancing, and all of a sudden they see that there is a little rabbi there. Nobody really understands what a rabbi does with all this crowd. But what happens really is that all of a sudden, as happens in the Mediterranean, there is a storm. And one of the passengers, as a result of the boat shifting here and there, falls into the sea. So everybody starts asking for help, throwing a rope, throwing inflating balloons and so on. And nothing really happens. All of a sudden they see the rabbi jumping into the water and he saves that passenger. So the whole boat is very excited about the fact that it's the rabbi who was so courageous. And the captain decides to give him a dinner. And he asks everything about all the food laws, the kashrut and so on. And there's a great dinner and everybody is there. And everybody says great things about this rabbi, how great and how courageous he is. And finally, the rabbi has to answer. So he says, Mr. Captain, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this dinner, but I want to know one thing. Who threw me into the water? So I can say that it is this young lady here who threw me into the water. I'm not an experienced person as far as interviewing, but will manage between the two of us. And I know that you have been introduced with all your education and titles by the ambassador, but I think there are some stories in your background which you would like to start telling us.
Thank you very much for introduction and for all these, introducing words. Yes, I have few messages, of course. One is the official part, and that we really believe in this, what we're doing in order to support, state of Israel in its, fight against terrorism, against, its right to exist, and to, take, particular measures that, they can ensure their, national interest and safety, measures. There's one thing, and secondly, of course, as a Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, I'm in charge of mainly 3 areas, as it was said: economic affairs, so investment, trade, tourism, like energy security. I'm also governor at International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna, sent by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we just had some also fruitful meetings with your ambassador because we were supporting declaration against Iran's regime that that it's not cooperating with international organizations. So that's just one of the examples that how we're supporting Israel in multiple areas. And next to that, I'm also in charge of defense sector, and Israel is one of the greatest countries on earth that all surrounded by enemies, and it's still like global leader in
Technology.
Yeah, technologies, innovations, being resilient. So it's a great example for us, that we could just incorporate, into our country. And the third, I think, for this particular occasion, the most important area is diaspora affairs. And for me, Israeli Lithuanians who moved in different, circumstances to Israel, they're a part of our diaspora. And it's very important to me, to speak with the representatives of diaspora and to stay connected and to welcome you back, more and more in multiple, occasions and circumstances. So this is another mission that I do. I did it like last week with our diaspora in Paris. A few weeks ago, I was in New York, and here in Israel, like for the same purpose. I know that, the diaspora is a bit, could be different because you have different backgrounds, different, circumstances, what brought you to Israel. But for me, we're all the same, we're all a part of the diaspora. And perhaps you've heard some of those stories when Napoleon conquered Vilna, how he called, Vilnius? He called Northern Jerusalem. Because Vilnius was, he had 40 synagogues, they had 100 houses of prayer. So, and the first impression for Napoleon, it was like this, that he called this Northern Jerusalem, and we're all very proud of the fact that, the Israel flag that I'm wearing, together with the Lithuanian flag, was also designed by a Lithuanian who came to Israel. and shekel and other, multiple stories that, allows us to see that we had a great, cooperation for centuries, and this disaster that appeared like on the Second World War, you just cannot vanish the whole, cooperation and the outcomes that we had, for so many centuries. So one of my missions is just to bridge, this again and to get as many synergies as possible. So coming back to my personal story, one of my great-grandfathers, he was Adam Bloom. And unfortunately, unfortunately, he loved my great-grandmother too much, and he converted into Christianity. But, still, he was Adam Bloom, and he's from Panevėžys. He was Jewish, obviously, Lithuanian Jewish. But we all know that, the nation as such, in our definition, just appeared on the 19th century before, religion was the core. And that's how it was. So, again, according to the great-grandfather's side, to my father's side, it's one story. But another story that I also wanted to share with you, and I think I was told it's really important to share such kind of stories. I was a bit, afraid talking about it, but I was really encouraged by many people to say the story and to share it with you, because it's important. We need to speak about it loud as well. So my grandfather from my mother's side, he had 3 sisters and 3 brothers. And they were farmers. They lived, in a village. And when Nazis came, in the middle of the night, they woke up the entire village because somebody shot one Nazi soldier in a forest. Nobody knows who did it. So they put all the village people to one line, including all the family of my grandfather's sister. So it was his sister, her husband, her nephew, and niece, who were like 5 and 7 years old, kids. So they put like more than 60 people in a line, and that was like in the middle of the night. They started shooting with shouting with dogs in German language, asking like who killed this Nazi soldier, and nobody admitted, nobody saw anything, nobody knew in general what happened. So what they did, they shot everybody, all the people, more than 60 people in a line, and they left only one person, and they told him, look, tell the others what's going to happen if you don't cooperate with us. That was the message. So the next day, my grandfather with his brothers, with sisters, they came, they buried, their family members, his sister, her husband, her 2 kids. And what happened a few months later, he was a farmer. He was going to Šiauliai ghetto as a farmer, and he was providing vegetables, for Šiauliai ghetto, because I'm coming from Šiauliai, Šavlė, Šiauliai, yeah. And he provided vegetables. And after he, provided vegetables, one lady approached him, and she came with 2 young girls. And she says, could you please save my kids, my 2 girls? And he knew what happened like a few months before to his sister's family. And he took these girls, he put them to his potato, bags. He put them to the carriage because he was riding the horse and carriage, and he left the ghetto like this. Yeah, Šiauliai ghetto, Šavlė. And so everybody understands like what would have happened like if they started sneezing or coughing, kids, But he took that risk, and I asked him like multiple times, like, were you were not afraid or something? He says, I did what I had to do. And then, they had relations. These girls, they grew up. Then in the 70s, they came here to Israel. They had phone calls all the time. And then my mother, even like when she was growing, she remembers, those phone talks because, these ladies, because they were a bit older than my mom, they were like having conversation from time to time, and once they called, they said, and they asked like for a photo. He says, we need your photo in order to put this to this list of people who were rescuing our people. Yeah, but my grandfather, he didn't. He says, no, I'm not going to send you the picture. And my mother was asking why. These ladies were also asking why. And I was also asking my grandfather why you haven't, because it's an honor to be on among all these. But he says, I did what I had to do, and he was never showing off about it. He was never proud of that thing. Of course, maybe he was satisfied about the result in general, but he was never showing off about it, and he didn't even send the picture, the photo. So I'm not even sure like if he's on the list, but I know the story because I know these ladies, they kept calling him. And unfortunately, my grandfather, he passed away in 2000. So he's not, in this among live people.
Still do it.
Yeah, I was told about it, but
Still do it.
yeah. But my grandfather, if he really needed that, he would have like sent the picture and would have done that. Maybe like perhaps there's a procedure for that. But I just wanted to share, this my family episode, that in order to show that like we're all human beings. So and some of them, they were really brave and they had enough courage to make that kind of move. And he saved these girls whom he didn't know. He didn't know that lady, and then he did that move. So so this is what I wanted to start our conversation with. I didn't do that on purpose. I just told it multiple times to the ambassador, to other people, some few other friends here, and they said, you got to talk about it. It's important to know what was happening and in what kind of circumstances we were like creating these relations. But in my opinion, as I would repeat myself, we're the same. You are all Lithuanian diaspora. You're not some. I don't like these different terms. For me, it's the same. Diaspora, all Lithuanians. Who live here. They're all same diaspora representatives, and I'm really interested in strengthening these ties. And obviously, we're always in a support of multiple synergies. And what we do here, we're also supporting the state of Israel and its right to defend, and then to fight against terrorists, And I said it like on the 7th of October in public on the Cathedral Square, among other ambassadors. And I came there, I was stating that loud. And then an embassy approached me, and they were also appreciating that. But so I thought these different times when everything goes well, it's easy. Everybody goes there. And here we came also to show our solidarity. We spoke a few days ago with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel. We already discussed, the multiple, questions, including, part of the anti-Semitism and our efforts in order to fight to criminalize it and to stand against that. So that's maybe just for introduction. I don't know, maybe that was too long.
I think that was a wonderful introduction, more than I would ask for, because you gave us many aspects. You gave us the tragic part, the fact that our people were part of Lithuania for so many generations and the whole community was wiped out. But you also gave us the other side of the coin, which is that there were also good people, like your grandfather, who saved people. And I must add on a personal note that for me and for many of us here in Israel, the Lithuanians that we met here and in other parts of the world were a very special kind of very cultured people with a big tradition of Judaism and of Hebrew. And in many ways, I think that this house here continues this tradition, both of Lithuania, also remembering the Lithuanian life before the war, but also dealing with culture, which I think is very important. But since you brought up the whole issue, I would like to ask you, we know that there is, since the 7th of October, much more anti-Semitism in the world. It has grown, there has always been anti-Semitism. This is a very old disease. It has taken many forms over the years. But since the 7th of October, we are seeing a new form of hatred, both against the Jews, which becomes much more violent, and against Israel. And in as much as we hear in the streets of Paris or of Sydney, even today, from the river to the sea, that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, this is also a form of anti-Semitism. So I would like to put a question to you. I know that you do not have statistics in Lithuania, but I know that in Lithuania too, since the war, the anti-Semitism has grown. And my question to you is not only the numbers, but also the fact that it has reached the political scene. So how do you deal with it? What do you know about the numbers? What kind of anti-Semitism, what forms of anti-Semitism do you see in Lithuania?
Thank you very much for a very, very good question, and this is very important to talk about it. Well, I have a few good news, about it. So maybe I'll start first with the official one, and then I'll go back, to in more detail. Yeah. So like.
I was going to ask.
Oh, sorry. We can get.
No, just.
No, but we can make it talk about it later. But then I'll just answer directly to your question then about this official position. But coming back to your question, it's very, very good question, because speaking about like nowadays contemporary world, it has changed a lot since we started like having very aggressive propaganda, a lot of big portions of lies, and I think part of the society, which is not maybe like so going deep into facts, which is a bit primitive and naive, and sometimes they have too much of rage and stereotypes, and for them it's so easy to see the world as just black and white. And these kind of people, they're everywhere. I mean, 2 years ago I was in Washington D.C. I was in front of the White House, and I saw rabbis and their like wives protesting against Israel, and that was ridiculous, in my opinion, because I mean it's so narrow-minded in my opinion, because you just need to go deeper and have some more arguments if you're like judging particular things. But on the other hand, the war in Ukraine that we had, and then Russian propaganda, Kremlin propaganda regarding Ukrainians, we saw like all these terrible things what happened in Ukraine, in Bucha, elsewhere. And on the other side, we saw a big portion of lies, big portion of propaganda, trying to demonize the victim itself, open eyes for many people, and we got some immune system, for that, and critical thinking, and in my opinion, we saw, of course, parts of part of the people, who are still protesting and talking about things that they have no idea about, and for them it's like the world is just black and white. On the other hand, what I've noticed, for example, when we get some kind of professional clubs of basketball or football club coming from Israel to Lithuania, we always get some weird group of protesters. They're coming with these, symbols. But I swear, what's the major perception for the majority? We look at them as some clowns. We don't take them seriously anymore. Yeah, we know that they will be there. So there was a friendly game with Israel, and so like the federation itself, they made a decision not to have any visitors, just because in order to avoid some conflicts, and they got some signals that there might be some scandals, some provocations. That was the way. But on the other hand, when we had some people's like some events with crowds. They were always such people, but I wouldn't say that they were like loud. They were like seen or considered as serious. They were considered as marginals, and they were really just a minority of them. This is because what we've seen in the Ukrainian war and in Russian aggression against Ukraine, that usually the aggressor or terrorist mind think, aggressors, they are always lying. They spread a lot of lies. They do the violence from their side first, and then they start yelling.
How much do they convince the people?
The good news that I don't have the pure stats, but from my own perception and from what kind of I get feedback from like the locals, I would say that the majority of them, they support Israel, because when we see that Israel was attacked, Israel was tortured, it was it had walked through all these terrible actions, and it has a right to defend itself. You cannot deal or communicate with the terrorist minds, because terrorists, they don't care about life at all, and for us it's a red line, and that's why the majority of the people, they can see the difference. Where's the terrorist approach? Where's the right to defend the population's interests? So I can assure that the majority of the people, of course, there were like some people who are like what I call a bit like naive, primitive, and they can be biased by stereotypes, some old stereotypes that have nothing in common with reality. But the majority, they're really, really supporting, Israel's position. I wouldn't call that it's so automatically, against, Israel's right to defend itself. I would say the opposite way. These different wars, especially the war in Ukraine, opened our eyes. We saw that the aggressor sometimes tries to be too smart, and then spreads a lot of lies. That's how we can see that Hamas or Hezbollah is using the same technologies that has been used like by other aggressor in Ukraine, for example, and then that allows us to be smarter and to have like more immunity for that.
Before we get to the next item, I still would like to ask you, understand, if I said that there is anti-Semitism also on the political level, I understand there is a leader of a party, forgive me if I do not say his or pronounce his name properly, Remigisius Zemataitus, okay, who apparently made a lot of anti-Semitic statements. Apparently, he was judged. The question is, and I understand that your president is against or was against the bringing into the government in key positions his party. The question is his party part of the government? And maybe I tie in with the question of that Mickey asked about the Ministry of Culture.
Yes, you pronounced his name quite well. This person is the leader of the political party, and he's a parliament member. Like he's been in the parliament for many terms before as well. And yes, he has a court trial because we have a rule of law, and any kind of anti-Semitic expressions, thoughts, it's against the law. And it's purely said that he's going to have to respond according to the decision of the law, and he just recently got a big fine for this, quite a big fine and then thousands of euros for that, just for the stupid joke that he shared. That was really pathetic and then really, really wrong a joke, as he called this as a joke, but that was like old-fashioned Nazi time propaganda-based thing. But he kind of tried to consider this as kind of a joke, that he was misunderstood. He was kind of not against Jews, but against Israeli government. He tried to explain this that way. But coming back to what's his status, he has a court trial, and based on the final decision of the court, he will take responsibility, including political responsibility. But coming back about his political party, of course, I don't want to justify it at all. On the other hand, they were not like identifying the whole party as like anti-Semitic or something. That would be really not true to call them just that they got the power just because of this kind of approach. It was his personal statement. And he will have to pay for that, for sure. And he depending on the final decision of the court, and from the practice of the courts, there's no mercy, for such kind of jokes. It will be clear. Coming back to your question about Minister of Culture, since their party was a part of the ruling coalition together with our Social Democrats, with the Green and Farmers Party, they joined the ruling coalition. they got some posts, but speaking about cultural, the Minister of Culture, we took it over, even though it was like not according to the coalition agreement. Now Social Democrat, yes, it's Social Democrats now hands, and now we have our own minister, who used to be the parliament member. She's our party member. So it's not from his party, and this kind of misunderstanding was solved in that way, even against the coalition agreement.
On a personal note, I'm glad the Social Democrats have taken over. Okay. So let us get maybe now to the interesting, even more interesting part of the evening, and that is the fact that your country has adopted, in January of this year, a very comprehensive strategic plan to combat anti-Semitism. And I understand that it has 3 parts: to combat anti-Semitism, to combat xenophobia in all its forms, to prevent incitement, so it has against and preventing also, and also supporting and fostering the Jewish life. So these 4 parts of a plan, which probably is the first time that it is such a well-coordinated plan, is something quite exceptional. And I would like to hear from you. I understand that you have also been teaching, so how do we combat anti-Semitism? What do you do by way of education, teachers training, etc.?
Thank you very much for a very important question. I'll just make a few remarks in addition to what was said. Yeah, so the adoption of the action plan proves that Lithuania strategically assesses the damage caused by anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and all forms hatred, to society and the state, and understands that a state can only prosper when its Jewish community prospers. Also, it confirms to our fellow citizens and foreign partners that the government of the Republic of Lithuania does not tolerate any form of anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and other manifestations of hatred. This plan was approved in accordance with the Lithuanian government program, and take into account that European Commission communication number 615, strategy for combating anti-Semitism and promoting Jewish life. So the action plan aims to contribute to the overall goals of Lithuanian state in combating anti-Semitism, xenophobia, all forms of hatred and discrimination, as well as ensuring, equality and promoting Jewish life, as it was said, So, and it all possesses that the state institutions and agencies not subordinated to the government, municipalities, ethnic communities, and non-governmental organizations participate in the implementation of the plan. This is, as you see, is a part of our government's agenda. It's very, very clearly said. Now we just start implementing. And in addition to this legal, political will, I could say that, nowadays, the general opinion has changed a lot. When we saw, what kind of disaster you had, on the 7th of October, I would say that most of the of your friends in Lithuania, your family members and other colleagues in Lithuania, they just looked at the whole tragedy with a huge empathy, and it opened eyes, for many people. We can never judge, victims, and all these forms that were used, by terrorists. They were so cruel, so terrible that it opened eyes for many people in Lithuania as well. So that's another reason why any kind of jokes, any kind of forms of anti-Semitism is a tone of the bad taste, already, for any kind of intellectual person. And I think it became even clearer that it doesn't make any sense to continue that way. And of course this decision will just create additional forms of action plan and action plan implementation, forms. And for example, every year we have more and more people, gathering, for Holocaust Remembrance Day, and it becomes very good, tradition, to come. Even myself, 2 vice ministers, we were taking part of, in the event in the Jewish ghetto theater, and then with multiple ambassadors, with members of parliament, and I mean, we had a separate, event at the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So, I mean, we're getting more and more of forms how to implement, such kind of strategy.
Before coming here, I made my homework. And I tried to read as much as I could about this plan, because I think not only is it very interesting and very comprehensive, but it is also in line with what the European Community strategy is. And I understand that, for instance, some of the key measures are education awareness, with training teachers and public officials and law enforcement, and new educational programs on Jewish history, which is much more, I have to say, than many other countries don't do, and also cultural events. So I would like to ask you, since you have been teaching, how do you see that, the teaching? I mean, do we get into a class, children on the 11th grade, and give them a history lesson? Or do we have other ways also of making them understand emotionally what happened? How do we make them understand what responsibility is?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for a very good question. As a teacher, mainly I'm working as an associate professor, at university, and giving classes in finance, which is a bit maybe
That's why I have been asking.
Yeah. And always, some, for example, I was, I had one subject called international crisis and international finance and crisis, and sometimes we were covering Israel's region, and we were analyzing multiple trends that were related with international finance and crisis also here as well. And sometimes I kind of felt that there could be some kind of forms, even light forms, which are completely unacceptable of anti-Semitism. But always the majority of the younger generation, I would say, they are reacting differently already. For them, there's always rejection for the majority of them. Of course, there are a few of them that they might try to become so-called, there's a maybe wrong exception to call them, but in general, they want to get the attention in any kind of form, and sometimes they provoke some kind of stupid, idea in order to get some attention. But that's the only, result that they achieve. Coming back, to your question and talking about talking with younger, effective measures. I always try to highlight. And yesterday we visited. I always forget the Yad Vashem. Yeah, sorry about that. But it was really one of the most impressive museums, places, of remembrance that I visited in my life, and it's very good. It's spreading a lot of good ideas, and one of them that I took it as one of the strongest ones is that when they were showing what were community members that they had, practicing Jewish religion, and how equally, which kind of phrase should I use? I mean, there was no difference between them and their neighbors, but the Nazi propaganda regime, they tried to create some kind of weird, stories, some lies, some kind of creating stereotypes, some kind of racist approaches, some kind of ridiculous, unhuman stories, and they made it so intensively we have a saying, if you call somebody a pig 3 times, that the 4th time it will start oinking, So when they started repeating, these lies, this propaganda in the mass media, I'm talking about, Nazi regime, it became very efficient because, the majority of the people, they were like not so educated. And that's why, it made an impact, such a strong that, they got some support, among the locals. And then, first of all, it started in Germany, and it was rise in Germany, and then it started spreading in the rest of Europe. But all this propaganda effect was so strong. And how it was working, it was creating artificial stories. It was encouraging some kind of rage and jealousy.
So you're teaching the children the way that there was propaganda.
Exactly. I'm showing like how the propaganda is constructed. Propaganda is not always 100% lies. Usually it's like using some kind of special information, some facts, putting, around, different, elements, like, and hiding the core, part of the lies. And children and students and other, immature, personalities that later they get the wisdom finally, sometimes too late, sometimes never, but usually, they get it. They don't recognize how this lies is hidden, in the whole portion of propaganda. So I'm always trying to show, look, 90% is okay. That's the idea of propaganda, but this 10% is like, ticking bomb. It's like ticking, mine, and you got to be accurate. You need to have critical thinking in order to see the difference and how to find, this lies of propaganda. I think this is the core, because, even the guide, who was really, really strong yesterday in this museum, each time we were walking in all these halls, we were seeing all these terrible, photos and videos. She kept the question, why? And she's been working here the entire life. She doesn't have the answer. And as I was saying, our first Jewish community in Lithuania, it came in 1300s. 1300s, when they were exiled from most of the European countries. We, not they, because my ancestors as well. They were exiled from Spain. They moved to France. Then same happened. They were either needed to convert into Christianity, either they were forced to leave, and then they moved to Grand Duchy of Lithuania. And we've been living there for almost 7 centuries, 6 centuries at least, 600 years. And what happened on the Second World War? Just in a few years, in few months, that it all turned around. Even the locals started to support it. So it means that this propaganda is not such a easy thing. It was really, really strong tool. And one of our missions is to implement the critical thinking for the children, for the students, that they could just look for the real facts, for the sources, use their common sense sometimes, and by showing that, look, if there's a terrorist, organization, and they have special budgets, for propaganda, they have special studios, for creating, different films, and in order to justify their terrible, actions that it's proven, and then it comes without saying, sometimes. So that's the main, thing, but also showing, such places like this museum, and even but maybe visiting Israel is also a great example. How can they change their mind, and especially I remember when I came here first time, more than 10 years ago, I saw everything by my eyes, and it completely changed my understanding about Israel, about everything. And then I told to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, sometimes, when you need to prove that you're not a camel, or that it's not a, bucket of water, is just a table, is just a chair, it takes too much of your effort. And sometimes people are just, giving up. So instead of showing, some kind of, good things, and instead of wasting their energy for some kind of pointless things that that you don't need to prove that this is a table, and sometimes you don't need to prove that this is a chair. You can just focus on other more important things. But unfortunately, and we really support you in this hustle and this fight. You need to do this in order to educate, and on the other hand, you're all surrounded by neighbors, and it's always challenging. But the best thing is to bring people here, to show them, to give the facts on the table, and it always helps. The knowing helps.
I think that the point you made about lies and propaganda is more than a valid point right now. But I think that the job that we have is much more complicated because of the social media, because of TikTok and Facebook and everything. And the fact that the youngsters today don't even watch television anymore. It's either the social media or the podcasts. So I'm not saying that to discourage ourselves. I'm saying that the job that we have and that you have undertaken is a very complicated job. And I would like maybe to ask one more question. Understand that part of your strategic plan is also to protect and preserve the Jewish life, meaning putting all the efforts to protect the Jewish communities when necessary, and that is unfortunately true in many cases. You know how many tombstones have been desecrated and how much we have in other places seen synagogues burned and so on. So one of your plan rightly is, and that we're grateful for that, the protection of Jewish communities. Is that something, did you include in your plan also a budget?
Yeah, budget and expenditure is always sensitive, question, and it's always, since I'm not the Minister of Finance, for me it's very hard, to create some kind of expectations.
We're not going to hold you to your word. I'm just trying.
Yeah, but there's a camera, so that's, I'm a bit frustrated, somebody might see that, and then I don't want to, lie or promise something that is not going to be implemented. But obviously, if this is the part of the agenda, if we have, effective, action plan, so obviously we need some resources in order to be allocated for that. So, and I think, we're already, doing some different, activities based on like NGOs, based on volunteers. Maybe somebody visited this special museum in Šeduva in Lithuania. So there are appearing such special open spaces where you can see the heritage, and then
I've read about it.
It's really impressive, place, and then it's really another.
Creating like a whole village.
Yeah, it's really impressive because it was all inhabited by Lithuanian Jewish there for many centuries. So we have a lot of infrastructure that has been used for public services. Unfortunately, we don't have so many people who can still practice Judaism. But in general, younger generation, they're more a bit further from religions, and it's not just about Judaism, it's about Christianity and some other religions, but not all of them, unfortunately. And but
the Muslims.
I didn't mention that. But so coming back to your question, obviously, if it's a part of the agenda, if when we have really efficient plans, obviously we're considering them because we need to implement it, and hopefully that this year is going to be quite successful in terms of tax collection, because we made some moves that it's going to allow us to feel more confidence in that direction, because there are some decisions made that might accelerate the economy, and then obviously when we have sufficient funds, there's always more opportunities in that. But coming back to this, it's not just a paper. It's just is a working plan. It's a part of our government's plan. So definitely there will be some particular funds allocated there, and then obviously in cooperation with NGOs, with volunteers, we're going to implement it,
Thank you. And I would like to ask now if anyone in the audience would like to ask a question from the Deputy Minister.
Hello, Shalom. Hello, Deputy Minister. Hello, Mrs. Abital. Hello to the Ambassador. We haven't met, but perhaps Lena told you about their frequent meetings. Now my meetings are in Vilna. I'm commuting for the last 6 years to Vilna. I have a Lithuanian organization I run. It's an American organization that's joined together in Lithuania. It's called Žydų paveldas Lietā. So you understand what it is. In English, it's Jewish Heritage in Lietā. I'm there all the time, literally all the time, back and forth. I mean, usually it's at least once a month. Many of the people in the government, in the opposition, in the business community, I'm very familiar with. And I have a few questions and issues. First of all, I assume that I'm the only person that actually read this.
I read part.
You read part of it, yeah. You said that you read it. I assume that here it is. I have it already a week, and I read it literally from the first minute. So it's of great concern. First of all, the good news, you asked about anti-Semitism in Lithuania. I want to tell you that visible anti-Semitism in Lithuania doesn't exist. I walk on purpose all the time in Lithuania like this with my wife. Not only is there no anti-Semitism among the young people, I'll explain that in a moment. We were recently photographed in the downtown and by one of the most famous street photographer. And they put us up as a special couple, and we got with thousands of likes, and tens of thousands of views. The most I don't know his name, whatever. Maybe you know who it is. Maybe you know who it is. And my wife was very annoyed. She said, "What are you talking about? I wasn't dressed in this. People complained about her shoes." I said, "No, it's important that people in Lithuania know about us." So we're there. But having said that. Sometimes the older people, and especially out of Vilna, Vilna is a new city. Most of the people are there just decades. Often when I meet people in Vilna, and they say, "Oh yeah, we're here a long time. Our family's here 40 years." I said, "Oh well, I'm 400 years, but it's okay." So it's sometimes out of town. We would have an older person would give us dirty looks. This has happened to me many times. I had skinheads start cursing dirty Jew in Lithuanian, but it's very rare, extremely rare. Whereas when I first went to Lithuania 30 years ago, literally everywhere I brought a group, everywhere in the street we went, people got out of their cars to make a Hitler salute, and people threw stones at us and spit at us and pushed us. The difference in 30 years is unbelievable. So that doesn't exist. Also, the whole Free Palestine thing is almost nil. It seems to be just a couple of people who are paid once in a while to do something, to do some provocative act. So that doesn't exist in Lithuania, basically doesn't exist. And not only that, the young people in Lithuania are receptive all the time. Wherever we go, curious, people ask us, "What are you doing? And who are you? And what was the story? And what was the history?" Because people are very ignorant in Lithuania about the Jewish history of Lithuania. It's getting better and better, but generally, people are ignorant. I want to say one important thing, that I may have more information for the Deputy Minister about the situation about your grandfather. Because once on a group walking in Kovna, which they call Kamis, we had an elderly gentleman who came over to us and told us a very similar story with two sisters. And we have it on video, the whole thing, in Lithuanian. And I have a funny feeling that this case is perhaps the same case, so we maybe should share some information. But I do have some serious questions and serious issues, and here's the but, and I hope that the Deputy Minister will be okay with that. Issue number one is with hepatitis. Just to put off, I'm sorry if I say, but to put off the story with hepatitis is a bad joke. I have right here, if we have a technician here, but I think it'll be a little too shocking. I have here on my phone the video. It's right over here of him in the Seimas defending himself when he was supposed to get thrown out of the Seimas. Were you in the Seimas that day?
No.
You weren't there. It's the most shocking thing. He puts together demonizing Jews in the most shocking manner. He has babies crying in Gaza, together with a song about the Israeli army displacing people. Did you see? It's one of the most shocking things that is possible to see. Now, we know Žemaitaitis is. The question is, why is Lithuania the first country since the war to take a rabid anti-Semite as a coalition partner? It's true that the president disallowed the Žemaitaitis to choose any ministers, but at the end of the day, he is a senior partner. And when the government was shuffled in the summer, and the third coalition partner said, "This is crazy. We got to do without them and it's done." That's the name of his party. But the Social Democrats said, "No, we're going with him." They kicked out that party and took in another party. So this is a key question which needs to be addressed. It needs to be understood. Actually, is more. I understand it, but it needs to be understood. The second thing over here is the whole last week, right after the government announced the resolution, it's called the resolution for fighting anti-Semitism, was International Holocaust Day. And the Prime Minister on International Holocaust Day, it's called, the real name is International Memorial for Holocaust Victims. It's a memorial for Holocaust victims. That is what International Holiday is. International Holocaust Day is. It's obviously
and combating anti-Semitism.
The day of the
no, it's also and combating anti-Semitism.
It's Holocaust victims. That's what I'm saying. The Prime Minister of Lithuania, it sounds crazy, chose to go to commemorate that day. We'll get it right over here. She chose to go to a place called Tusculanae. Did I get it right? Tusculanae. Tusculanae, I have the information here, it's unbelievable, is a place where the KGB had interrogations and assassinations of Lithuanians, and up to about 800 Lithuanians were killed there. And they're considered buried there. There are dozens of Holocaust perpetrators, Nazis, because that's many of the people that the Soviets persecuted were collaborators. There are dozens of Nazi collaborators, murderers buried in that place. And the Prime Minister chose, instead of going to Panar, which she hasn't visited yet, she chose to go to a place where are buried Nazi collaborators. It needs to be understood what's going on in Lithuania. And here is, that is my second question. The third question and the third issue.
אפשר לקצר?
כן.
He wants to ask who pushed him into the water.
I wanted to start with that, of how I got pushed into this water.
Yes.
The third and last question is, having working for 6 years, I am promoting Jewish heritage in a big way. My issue is not Holocaust, my issue is not restitution. I'm promoting Jewish heritage. Promoting Jewish heritage means I try to preserve and restore where possible. We want to. The cemeteries, there's 250 Jewish cemeteries, 250 mass graves, and possible things like synagogues, also promoting Jewish life. But in my experience, in every single case, the people of Lithuania are interested, especially the young people, but the government is again and again blocking anything to do. And I brought just one example. There's, you said 40 synagogues. There's 100, less than a minute. There were 165 synagogues in Vilna before the war, 165. Of those, 100 were freestanding structures. Of those, there's only a few left. One of the last left is Epstein's Clois. There is an agreement between the United States and Lithuania in 2002 to protect all the culture. I have here from the real estate agent that it's being sold to be destroyed. Basically, it says it comes without any cultural heritage attachment. And it's basically the only building left that looks like an old synagogue in Vilna, and it's being sold to be converted to like apartments. And when it comes, and it's the same thing in fostering life. I mean, I've tried endless things, and every single thing where blocked by the government. I say that I could bring billions of euro to the GDP of Lithuania, because the tourist potential of Lithuania is absolutely huge.
Thank you for your comment, especially that you emphasize the situation now regarding antisemitism.
That is better. Yeah.
And it's very, very, good and flattering to see that, somebody who is very objective and who can see the difference between like what kind of situation we had like 3 decades ago and nowadays, that there is a change, obviously. It takes time, and societies, they need to grow, and based on like the knowledge that they gain and then facts that they get, obviously it can be changed. And thank you very much for showing that what's the real situation in terms of antisemitism. And coming back to these statements of this particular person, obviously I disagree with all of them, and it's pathetic what he did, and I can guarantee that he has a court trial now, and he'll have to pay for this. Nobody will forget it, and then obviously he's going to take both legal and political responsibility for that. That I can assure. Since I'm a diplomat, I'm representing Minister of Foreign Affairs, I cannot go further with this. But as I said before, we took the Ministry of Culture from them. That was a part of the coalition agreement, and that shows more. I think that like about our intentions and about our like reaction, regarding potential behavior. Coming back to real estate part and cultural buildings, I would appreciate if you could share more information, with me, and I really dislike, such things, when these things happen. But unfortunately, on the other hand, we should, admit that, we have a lot of good examples of rebuilding, recovering synagogues in many, districts in Lithuania, like Joniškis, for example, beautiful 2 gorgeous synagogues, and now they turned into 3. Sorry, yes, yeah, you know better. Sorry about that's. But each time, I'm very excited, because I'm coming from Šiauliai, as I told you. Šiauliai, we used to have 8 synagogues and 14 houses of prayer, or maybe more, as you're always suggesting. And we kind of have, unfortunately, we had, big damage of the First World War, when Šiauliai was destroyed, by 80%. Then it was recovered, and then we had 60% of destruction of something of the buildings that were recovered. But in general, we have only 1 synagogue left, and it's kind of a quite bad situation. But they were, as far as I know, like the local municipalities, we cannot buy them the way we want as a government. But in a few months we're going to have municipal elections, by the way, and then there will be new mayors and city council members that they will take particular measures in order, to deal with these kind of obstacles and then to develop, this infrastructure. But coming back to this, I hate it when this happens. But on the other hand, we know that identical things are happening in Paris when they turn, temples into residential buildings. I just got back from New York, when there's a beautiful Lithuanian, Catholic church with from 60s with like very unique design and everything. And now that you know the story, So unfortunately, contemporary world is very, I would say, cruel, and this trend was happening with temples is really, really bad and wrong in my opinion. But there are things that we can bias on behalf of the government, and we make our efforts. Something that is left for municipalities, it's just a matter of perhaps a wider, more efficient dialogue in order to persuade city council members or like voters who are choosing the council members in order to act smarter. And what was the second? I forgot.
That was already the third. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister going to Tesco.
Oh yeah, we're all grown-ups, and on the other hand,
Maybe she should just get the message.
I doubt that
we could find for like deeper message, I would consider perhaps, that she might have been caught by a journalist in a particular moment, and it just was coincidence, because I know her like a bit longer. I have never had, any kind of feeling that she could be treated as anti-Semitic, never. She was always, very empathetic, very gentle, very sensitive regarding different, social groups. She was always, supporting, different, minorities. So I really have doubts that she might be considered as anti-Semitic, So that's my comment.
Mr. Deputy Minister, I just would like to thank you, to thank the public for being here, but thank you, first of all, for your visit. Second of all, for your understanding, for your support, for the way you see what has been happening to us. We still live in a trauma, and it's not an easy time for any of us, including these days. We don't know what is about to happen. So your support, your understanding is very important to us. And also thank you for sharing your understanding here tonight with all of us and being, your feeling for the diaspora that you see here and in other countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just want to propose one point. You see this place? It's a very good space to have some delegations of students from Lithuania, from Vilnius, here in this place, to see, to hear the heritage, to meet other young people.
And to get seminars.
The best place in Israel.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.